You know, it's kind of funny. Everybody has a different reason for joining the Academy. And the times that I wanted to join, I noticed that all the fellows in my community, and I wasn't a fellow at the time, had these little buttons that said AAML. They're red, white, and blue. And I said, I want to have one of those buttons. And so I began the process of applying to the Academy, and I was very proud to be admitted to the Academy. It's been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
I am happy to discuss my fondest memories as a fellow of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. It'll begin with when I initially applied, and that is I was going to have an oral examination with one of the fellows. So I got the information from the national office, and the fellow with whom I was to be interviewed was George Stern. Well, as it turns out, when I was a young child at Hebrew school, I had a teacher named George Stern, and I thought, I wonder if it is he.
I have some great memories from my time in the AAML. Probably the first one was my first meeting. I had joined the group in 1991. My first meeting was in 1997, and it was in Cancun. And I brought my family because I thought I'd never been to Cancun. And my wife suggested that I should play in the golf tournament. I pointed out to her that I'd never played golf before, so that may be difficult. But she said, oh, it's easy to play golf. You know, you look like an athlete.
The Academy, to a large extent, is memories. I have large memories and I have small memories. The large memories have to do with the obvious, spending a year as president, but not so much leading, going around the country, meeting fellows, realizing how many great lawyers we have who are also great people. I have other large memories. I spent a lot of years on the editorial board of the Journal of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, wound up being editor-in-chief, and that was intellectually stimulating. And the downside is every August I spent in Kansas City, close to Michael Albano.
I have many, many fond memories of being in the Academy. My best friends are in the Academy. I've met people I never thought I would ever meet. The Academy means everything to me.
My first fondest memory was meeting Michael Albano. He was in charge of the New Timers dinner, and I had the opportunity of sitting next to Michael Albano, who has been a dear friend and role model and mentor since that date.
I had the greatest mentor a person could ever have in the American Academy, a gentleman from New York named Sandy Dranoff. Sandy set me down time and time again, both in New York and in Texas, and said, here's what you should do, and here's what you shouldn't do, and here's what you'll be making friends you never had before for 1 year, and then they'll go away.
So George was already ready to grill me about family law, and so my first question to him was, did you teach Hebrew at the West End Synagogue in Nashville, Tennessee? And he said, I did, and I said, I was your student. So we discussed that for a while, and he did actually ask me questions about family law afterwards, but that was my initial contact with the Academy, and it only got better from there.
Hospitality, back in the old days, 25 years ago, hospitality often took place in the president's suite, which was very small. We didn't get these big palatial suites. And to me, hospitality was one of the high points of every meeting. I was a young person, and the likes of some of the, I don't want to say older folks, but would sit in hospitality and regale us with their stories. And you'd have 10 people on a couch, and people sitting on the arms of the couch, people sitting on the floor, and we were just enthralled with the more senior, that's how I'll put it, the more senior fellows just telling us about the old days. Now it's a little scary because I find myself telling the new people about the old days, so I think that's become me. But those days in hospitality with the senior fellows telling us stories were just awesome.
My first meeting actually was in La Costa at a mid-year meeting. And I'm a little kid from Somerville, Massachusetts. 4 or 5 of us had just joined the academy. We didn't know anybody. We said, well, let's go to this meeting. It looks like it might be interesting. And it was a Joe Ducanto Tax Institute. And I thought I knew some taxes. Well, Joe Ducanto disabused me of that immediately by his lecturing. It was the most amazing lecture series, 4 days of taxes that was so valuable, so interesting. And on Wednesday, we went to the Salk Institute. And I still remember that because it was so, I had never gotten any kind of education in the law like that in law school or anything else.
Yes, we have wonderful CLE, and we have wonderful gold plaques, and we have wonderful spots that we go to, lovely spots, and we have the certified list, and all of those things are important, but the dominating thing is the fellowship that we enjoy.
When you first start coming to meetings, you're fortunate if you know a few people outside of your chapter, and I came from a very small chapter. I was number 9 when I first joined, and most of the fellows from Maryland didn't attend the meetings. But I had an in because I had an older brother from Ohio who introduced me around a bit. And the first few meetings were a little bit difficult because you're watching people greet each other, friends that they haven't seen for 6 months or a year, and they're so excited to see each other that they sometimes don't connect with people that aren't known as well. But the more frequently you come, the larger your group of friends becomes, the more connection you have with people. And as the years go by, your family in the AAML just increases exponentially.
And I would say that some of my closest friends are members of the Academy and have, through the years, whether or not they're 1,000 miles away or not, these are my people that I'm closest to in the profession and even personally.
The lifetime friends that I've made, my experience as president and on the executive committee for 25 years, and the wonderful times that we've had.
So I signed up for the golf tournament. And I came up to the desk the first day. I had met no one at all. And this nice gentleman from Texas and this giant from Texas, Gary Nicholson and Tom Vick. And they welcomed me. They said, oh, we're going to pair you up with the president of the AAML, Michael Ostro. I said, wait, stop. I don't know how to play golf. My first meeting, I know no one. I'm not playing. I mean, I was in awe. I'm from Maine. I don't know anyone. Well, Mike Ostro was the nicest guy I'd ever met. He made me feel welcome. I didn't hit any good shots the entire day, but he made me feel comfortable. He gave me some tips. He made me feel so much a part of an organization that I eventually started running the golf tournament. And I wrote a golf book. And I became president of the American Academy 15 years later. And so the lesson I learned is that an act of kindness goes a long way, and that if I can be president, anybody can be president.
In Nashville, we had an executive committee meeting, and Leonard Loeb pulled me aside and said, I want you to run for president of the Academy. And I said, I don't want the job. I like being a member of the executive committee. I like the friendships I've made here. And he said, I am entitled to my own man. You're it.
Oh, I have lots of fond memories from my time in the Academy. The first one was when I took the oath of president, and I should say, I was the first woman ever to be president of this organization. And all the other women who were there had balloons rise to the ceiling at the time of the inauguration, because this was a big thing for the Academy.
It's really impacted my entire life, my career. It's been a resounding plus for me. I was a shy kid from a poor neighborhood, a middle-class family ultimately. And I've done things that I never would have expected in my lifetime as a result of the Academy. And I hope the Academy feels that I've given back to it as much, if not more, than it's given to me.
You never know when you're going to be president whether that's going to happen or not. And so one of my proudest accomplishments really is to take the Academy and move it forward. When I was finished with presidency, I said to the next people, here's the Academy, I'm giving it to you, do no harm and do great good. So I think that that's my memory of those years, is that cooperativeness and the ability to really work together. You know, one of the things that I felt was important for us, and that we were uniquely qualified to do, is that because of the structure of our organization and the willingness of our fellows, we are able to act more quickly on issues of the day than other organizations are. And I felt, partially because I'm a former legislator, I think, that we needed to be more involved in those kinds of issues in a quick manner.
I started a project that has been named and renamed several things. But I put together a group of the finest psychologists in Dallas. And we got together, not actors, not actresses, but actual children, got releases signed of their parents, and interviewed the children and talked about the impact of divorce on children. And I thought that was very, very important.
A manual which we developed entitled, What Should I Tell the Children? What should we tell the children? And actually it's been translated in many languages, so it has international distribution. And it was something that I wanted to do for the Academy, because in my own practice, when people would come and meet with me and talk about divorce and splitting up their families, they would say to me, well, what should we tell the children? What should I tell our children? And it was a question that was asked so many times that I thought, you know, we need to properly address this. And so in collaboration with Mary Kay Kisthart, who is a law school professor, and Joan Kelly, who is a PhD psychologist, we developed a brochure for parents that we can distribute to our clients to help them to discuss with their children what they should properly tell them under divorce or separation situations. And I'm very, very proud about that.
That, I think, is the important, whether you want to call it the impact on children, the voices of the children, whatever, is that the children are the only innocent group in this thing that we call divorce. It's not family law, it's divorce law. And that's an oxymoron that we like to use sometimes, but you know, that's not what we do. We're divorce lawyers. And we must, as divorce lawyers, I think, keep the children really, really first in our minds.
There was a time that the Academy was really deciding whether to take political positions, and I think one of the critical times was when we were considering gay marriage, which was way before our society was prepared for that. And there was a huge debate about that, whether we should take a position.
And I told them, I said, because they were kind of reticent to get involved in everything. I told them, you get involved in everything we can get involved in from top to bottom. And in the past, it had been our habit only to get involved at the appellate level. And I said, where are these cases being lost? They're being lost at the trial level on the standing issue. I want you to go find some places to brief that, so that at the top of the chain, in the appellate chain, we would win and not lose because of lack of standing. That to me was the battleground at that point. And they did that. And it was somewhat reluctant because they had never done it before. Ultimately, we participated in amicus on the latest LGBT case.
We submitted briefs to the United States Supreme Court in U.S. v. Windsor and Hollingsworth versus Perry, the first two Supreme Court decisions on same-sex marriage. Our briefs were accepted and received, mentioned during the arguments before the court, and it was just a great accomplishment for the Academy.
And I was quite proud because I thought it was important for the leaders in family law, which we were, to take a stand and take a position and get the conversation going. So I think that the American Academy doing that was an incredible important function and really kind of made us stand out of taking important social issues that maybe some organizations would not want to do.
And so overwhelmingly impressive that the vast bulk of our members supported it.
And they came to me and said, "Do you want to sign the brief?" Because I was president. And I thought about it for a moment and I said, "No, I don't want to sign the brief. I didn't write the brief. I didn't do the work. I just gave direction. I want you guys to sign the brief. Just send me a copy." And I have that on my side table in my office. I'm very proud of it.
One of the major accomplishments of the AAML is its bounds of advocacy,
which was the first set of ethical guidelines for divorce lawyers. We recognized that the usual rules don't apply.
They were an attempt of really improving the practice and aiding the family in the daily practice of family law, about how lawyers should be acting with respect to certain defined issues. That was a major, major thing.
At the time we created them, they were revolutionary. Believe it or not, we were the first organization to have a set of rules that includes a rule that you're not supposed to have sex with clients. That was ground-shattering at the time.
We as trial lawyers are in the courtroom and we are advocates for our clients. That advocacy has different levels. The bounds of advocacy is aspirational, and all of our fellows pledge to follow the bounds of advocacy, which represent the utmost professionalism in the practice of family law and in the litigation of family law cases.
One of the major accomplishments of the Academy, in my belief, is the foundation.
In '92, we were talking about starting the foundation. And Sandy Dranoff, who was then a very powerful person and a very, very intelligent fellow and a very funny fellow, he didn't see why we should do that. There was no reason for do that. And a lot of people on the executive committee, and I was there at that time, they didn't want to vote against Sandy. And I remember saying to Sandy, "Look around this room." And he looked around, he says, "What am I supposed to see?" I said, "We're all going to die." And he went like that. I said, "And when we die, maybe the people in the Academy who know us will send a gift in our honor. And over time, we'll start with very little, but over time, it will grow. And if we can make donations to, help people who have been disabled, then that's what we should do." And I believe that was one of the reasons that the foundation got going.
Because we're not given, it's something that gives the Academy status, in my opinion, but it goes beyond that. Because it's helping children who are caught up in the throes of divorce. It's helping organizations who want to help those children by the grants that we're giving to them. And I think it's a major accomplishment because it's funded primarily by members and fellows of the Academy. And it makes me proud to tell other individuals who are not in the Academy why I think the Academy and its fellows are so tremendous. That they're willing to fund it, because when I became president of the foundation, we had a whopping $98,000 in the bank, and we're close to $2 million. And between then and now, they've given out, the foundation's given out over $1.4 million in grants. Who would have ever imagined that?
I think the recognition of the Academy throughout the country, the raising of the standards of family lawyers.
It gave divorce lawyers, matrimonial lawyers, integrity. It gave them a place of honor amongst trial lawyers that before that organization was established, wasn't there.
Well, after World War II, specialization in the legal profession began to be the norm rather than what happened before that. And sometimes there was specialization by force. That is, some very competent lawyers couldn't get jobs because they're minorities or were just not on the in group. So they were often looked down on if they did matrimonial law or family law. And as we began to specialize, the Academy arose as a organization that promoted the idea of quality and professionalism in the practice of family law.
I wanted to focus on professionalism, and we've never had a committee of the Academy or a focus, a real focus on professionalism and collegiality. And I've always felt that Academy Fellows should behave differently to each other than the rest of the world. You ought to accord your fellows every courtesy, so that when you leave a courtroom, the judge says, those are two really good lawyers. Fight hard, but you're courteous, you're professional, you extend courtesies, you try a good case, and you represent the Academy every day you're in court. And I thought that was very important.
The American Academy has done and continues to do great things. And one of the ways that I know that in the jurisdictions that I practice in, or at least most of them, is that if I want to come to a meeting and I have a conflict, I file a motion for continuance and I put in it, I'm going to the meeting of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. Bam, motion is granted. And that tells me that we have made great headway with our judiciary and with other lawyers. And it's actually particularly in Dallas and Collin and Tarrant County, if someone opposes such a motion, it doesn't bode well for their future in court.
One of the reasons the Academy was created was judges and other lawyers would laugh at family lawyers. There's nothing to it. It was deemed a weak sister. But through, in part, the efforts of the Academy, people began to realize how difficult, how complex it is, how to be a good divorce lawyer. You have to know a lot about everything, as well as be a sensitive human being. The Academy helped elevate the status of family law and the status of family lawyers. That's probably its major contribution.
We are looked to from various sources as an important force to be recognized in terms of how our membership feels about various areas. We advocate, we're involved in issues with federal legislation and with organizations that are working on promulgating federal legislation. We also are called upon in legislative hearings. We're also called upon from the media to express the various views of our fellows, which are determined through surveys and through our spokespeople, who are oftentimes the presidents of the organization at the time. So we're doing really good things in that way. We can continue to build on that.
I believe since we started in 1962, nobody heard of the Academy, but because of the quality of work that we've done in the briefs we've filed and the positions we've taken, the courts are now citing the Academy's position in these important social issues that we are dealing with as family lawyers.
And it made us special, and it continues to do so. And that, in my mind, is the greatest accomplishment of the American Academy.
The Academy does a lot for you, and it gives you an opportunity to do a lot for others. Way back when I joined the Academy in 1986, it was really the only way one distinguished himself as an elite matrimonial lawyer. So it did that for me. It upped my status, but it also gave me the opportunity to become a better lawyer. That's what I've been talking about, serving on the Bounds of Advocacy, serving on the Best Practices Committee, on the Journal. It gave me the opportunity to teach as well. I wrote articles for the journal. I became known as a national lecturer. I still do that, less than I used to, because I'm getting old and tired, but I still do that. So the Academy is a wonderful opportunity to learn and to teach.
It heightens your awareness of the issues that confront the courts and our clients in the various types of cases that we handle, be they straight divorces, financial issues, child custody issues, issues of domestic violence, issues involving assisted reproductive technology, adoption. It's so far-ranging.
The CLEs are absolutely phenomenal. There are times I walk out of a CLE session and say, maybe it's time for me to retire. Oh my God, I didn't realize that that's the law. How could I possibly have missed it? And then I found out that I wasn't the only one walking out of those rooms, those CLE sessions, saying to themselves, oh my God, the presenters are tremendous, and that is a tremendous benefit.
A requirement that once you take the bar, testing or study of the law is not something that you forget about. It's something that's a daily process in the work and in the practice. And as a result of that, the idea of constantly being alert to the changes of the law, to new techniques, to technology, information from other fields such as accounting and finance, all become very important. Tax becomes very important, and we have to stay up with that on a daily basis. And so it's a constant effort to do that, and I think the Academy has encouraged that in this area of the practice.
Another benefit you get if you're on committees, you learn a lot about how these things work, how to get things done in an organization like this. And every time you come and talk with somebody about a case or about some part of the law, you're going to learn something that you didn't know before, which is, I think, a huge value. And then if you go back into your community and you can encourage other people to apply, then you spread the education. So we're educating our fellows for the purpose of being able to better represent our clients.
The training has developed as the practice of law has developed, and now in this very challenging time when the practice of family law as well as law in general has changed, the Academy has provided leadership at the cutting edge on how to practice law in a professional way in a very challenging environment.
There are so many benefits, it's hard to really say. One of the benefits that I know everyone is going to say is that one of friendship, and that is true.
And friendship's on a whole lot of levels. It's gotten me closer to people in my own chapter, but on a much larger level, I have friends across the country, which I never would have had. And not only are they friends, I mean, they're friends that we wait to get to meetings to get together, but there's a whole different level out there of friendships. And some would say connections. I like to say friendships.
A lot of people join for referrals. What I find so incredible is to be able to, if a friend calls me and says he needs a lawyer in Boise, Idaho, I know a lawyer in Boise, Idaho that I can refer to that person and know that that person will be top shelf of a lawyer. But really the bottom line is it's camaraderie, it's family, and it's friendship. The people I've met at the American Academy are my best friends. I go to their houses, I visit them, I stay at their house. My children know their children. My grandchildren know their grandchildren. We are family. First and foremost, we're professionals, but we're family. And that connection, you can't get any other place or any other way.
The best benefits are the relationships. I mean, by far, hands down, because it's knowing the best practitioners in family law trial advocacy in the country. And being able to be with those people, talk to those people, train with the people, learn from them, have them become your friends, and not only your friends, but the friends of your children, your children's children, your grandchildren. It is really a family law family.
whenever there's a new fellow in the academy, and it's funny because I just spoke with a couple from Connecticut, and I always encourage them to really get to meet the other fellows from around the country. And one thing they'll find, other than the friendship, that is the same problems that perhaps were vexing to them that they maybe didn't have answers for. It's okay, because the people that you meet around the country, they don't have any better. They haven't been able to deal with it and recognize that the same problems. The major thing that I encourage them is to get involved.
The connections, the camaraderie, the getting to meet people and getting to learn about matrimonial practice together, and getting the same sense of what is the right way to go about things and what's not the right way.
You get to know people who are challenging the system and challenging the future and want to make it better and change it. And they're like us in a lot of ways. They're better than us in many ways, and they encourage us to get better.
You get to deal with great lawyers. You get to learn from them. You get to steal from them, because sometimes they don't know that you took their ideas and did things with them. I did that a lot.
It provides a structure for family lawyers to have role models, to seek advice in order to get the support they need. We all have the same experiences. We all have the same experiences with our clients, our judges, everything that arises in the profession. And to have people that you can rely on, discuss those issues with, provide advice and example is tremendous for those of us who are in the practice.
I'd like to see there be more exposure. I know the Academy has done a lot as far as membership, as far as having websites and so forth, but I think that we need more exposure. I think with more exposure we can get more people into the Academy.
In finding and looking for fellows, to reach out to maybe beyond the metropolitan areas, beyond the areas where we already have people, so that's where we can find people. We have to do a bit better job of figuring out a way to find those hidden gems in the areas where they might not be so noticeable, but they're there, and we need to figure out how to find them and bring them in. Because I think that's what we need to do. We need to bring more really qualified people into the fold.
The Academy is at a crossroads. As I said, when I became a fellow in '86, it was the way to distinguish yourself as a serious matrimonial lawyer. Over the last 10 or 20 years, there have been a dozen or more vanity organizations. I won't mention them by name because we'll get sued, but basically the only way you get in is you call your 10 friends and they nominate you and you are in. And you're on a top 10 list or a top 100 list. And the consumer doesn't understand why the Academy is different, that it is a rigorous organization, that there are standards for membership, that there is a test, that we truly are the best and the brightest.
This is not a pay-for-the-plaque organization. And as a consequence, I think that helped build the reputation and recognition of the Academy.
We've got to be real careful, and that we don't in any way sacrifice any of the historical standards. We're special. It's okay. And it's okay to acknowledge it. There was a period of time where people were concerned about the definition or designation as being elite. It's okay, because we are. And that's okay. And anything we do to diminish the requirements of getting into the Academy, to me, is a bad thing.
There are so many similar organizations that young family lawyers can join these days. So it's important for us to be able to articulate to them why this organization is so unique. And we know it is. There's no other organization like the Academy in the world.
I think we have to continue to speak out on issues, even if they're divisive.
It's a tough thing to do. It's very time consuming. and we need to stay active in briefing on an amicus basis everything that really affects family law, just not the LBG issues, but other issues. Right now, there's legislation about how military retirements are going to be divided.
To raise the standard of marital life with reference to the question of spousal abuse and things of that sort, which I think are problems in our society that are not finished, and I think the Academy has a big role in helping the public in that regard.
There is a huge amount still today of bias in the courts, misogyny and sexism, and the way we treat victims of domestic violence. You think in this day and age domestic violence would cease to exist anymore, but we still have people who are victims of domestic violence and people not prosecuted for committing violence on other people.
A strong, hard look needs to be taken at the availability of guns to people going through divorces, and whether or not there should be legislation on the state and local level to control access to guns for people who've been found guilty of domestic violence or who've threatened domestic violence. And I think that's one of the places where the Academy has to go in the future and really deal with it and address it as a national issue.
We need to be the voice of the average person who doesn't have a voice. We can speak as an organization and try to stop some of those social injustices that we feel so strongly about, and we can speak with one voice. So I think if we keep continuing to take a stand on what we think is right and be a voice for other people who can't do that, that's the best thing we can do for ourselves and for our country.
Well, when I think about what the Academy might do in the future, I see where we have been for the last 40 years since I've been a member, and we've accomplished so much. But I do think we should continue what we're doing.
It's important to have in place good leadership, and we have a lot of people in the leadership line. We're good for a lot of years. We have some really good people who will come after me, after Jocelyn, after John Slovacek, and there'll be continuity.
We need to continue our efforts at improving family law. We need to continue and improve our CLE. It's difficult to do CLE, continuing legal education, for a group of 1,600 lawyers, but because practicing law in Fairfield County, Connecticut is different from practicing law in Peoria, Illinois, but we need to remember that we're challenging our fellows and we need to continue to have high-level CLA.
We can continue to work together through our various chapters to improve the practice and to improve the services that we offer to families.
Because all that we have done has been so positive, and matrimonial lawyers are looked upon by other lawyers in other fields as being specialists, which never happened before. And I think it gives us a sense of place in the community of lawyers, and I think that's a really important thing. So I hope the Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers just keeps on doing the same thing, because it's great.
There's been some great books that the Academy has put out about custody and some of the other things that are going on now. And I think the more we do of that, the better. And make it available to the public. And you know, maybe we should underwrite it, because these books are going to the Academy Fellows, and they may give them to clients and so forth. But some of this stuff should be given to people before they see divorce lawyers, before they contemplate getting divorced, before they get married.
We haven't done anything to lower the divorce rate. My wife and I give seminars at Canyon Ranch in Tucson, Arizona, on how to save your marriage. And it's a whole lot like people will listen to an alcoholic about their drinking when they won't listen to anybody else. People will surprisingly listen to a divorce lawyer about what they might do to save their marriage rather than to destroy it. And I wish we could get the American Academy, the college, and everybody else much more ingrained in what do we do to help people when they come in our office, hopefully sooner rather than later, to save their marriage. I don't think divorce is a healthy thing for our country, for our states, for our people, and for our children.
And I don't know if the Academy has something about before you get married, what should be important, things like compatibility and ability to talk and discuss things and compromise and those kind of things. Because I don't think people go into marriage understanding what it is. And even living together doesn't replicate what a marriage is. It's too easy to walk out when you're just living together. When you're married, it's not that easy. And I think people are going in uneducated.
We also need to get the word out. Hey, when you're having problems, don't forget the lack of communication is really the number one reason for a divorce. And the other reasons are all important, but that needs to be presented time and time again to the country.
Always remember to go back to what our mission is, and to remember that the Academy is about making us all as more professional and all of those who deal in family law. But it's also broader than that in my perspective. That is that we have to think not only of ourselves, but what we can do for the general good in the area of family law that we know so much about.
From our point of view, since we only represent one client at a time, is to try and get justice done for the client, try and get fair settlements, try to reduce litigation, but if litigation comes, to have our fellows be the top litigators.
And demonstrate to the public and the law profession generally that we're above just our own cases and our own income and our own livelihood, that there is a higher calling for protection of children in divorces, and to help people perhaps not seek divorce when there's other alternatives.
The AAML has traditionally protected families and children in every kind of situation and environment. The AAML will continue to do that. It will, as circumstances change, as the nature of families change, as blended families continue to arise in all shapes and sizes and forms, the AAML will continue to protect those families, protect children, and do what can be done to show that the public that we are going to champion the causes of children and families.